All right, it is 6:08. Calling this board meeting to order for the South End Empowerment Zone. Looks like you can do roll call for us, please.
Sure. Sam Centeas,
Here.
Jeff Ray,
Here.
Stephanie Ball, here. Dwayne Wilson,
Here.
Sonia Watkins,
Here.
Ryan Mathis,
Here.
Karima Fowler,
Here.
Leslie Wesley.
Here.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, everybody. Next up is adoption of the agenda. I'll move for approval of the agenda. There's a first, is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. That passes. So we'll move on. First item on the agenda is the president's report. Grab my document here. So first up, Principal Appreciation Day was May 1st. So I know we did some things there. So we're still in May. So I want to make sure we draw attention to that. Thank all of our principals that worked hard here in South End Empowerment Zone. We also then, the following week was Teacher Appreciation Week. Where we got to celebrate our teachers in the zone. And so I want to make sure that appreciation comes to them from us.
Happy, energetic, and comfortable. I don't really have to teach her because all of them treat me as and not things. She teaches that she can run, she knows she knows me. I know that I love because they do people work for us. She took care of us, they go for everything. She makes sure her students are in shape. And she helps us a lot my husband. Because if she didn't go to the meetings, and makes it feel like it's teaching you how to be great. She just believes in me. And she breaks things down. Thank you for teaching. Thank you for teaching. Thank you for giving us everything we need. Thank you for having all the self-esteem. And thank you very much for helping me learn math. Thank you for everything, because it's good to see and it's going to be a lot. Thank you for being a good teacher and teaching us lots of new things. Such a good teacher. I love teachers. I hope to sing your song. Other kids will get practice. Amazing teacher, how wonderful you are. You go above and beyond. You're a real superstar. The demand is high for all that you must do, but you keep going. And ridiculously. Conferences, lessons, writing, meetings, and much more. You will for sure use your time to rest, rejuvenate, and set yourself. Thanks for giving of yourself, your reality, and remember your words can say. Wishing you have a marvelous, magnificent Teachers Appreciation. Happy Teachers Appreciation Week!
That was what our YouTube channel always has great stuff on. All right, so next up is just, I also want to recognize Warren Elementary. I want to thank the staff who have helped put together hosting us today. This is will be our last board meeting here at this building, and we're excited for right, what the next chapter is going to be for the student staff who are here, who will end up at other zone schools, that we'll continue to work with as the next chapter. As this chapter comes to a close for Warren, and the students and staff here have the next chapter with the South Bend Department. So, that is my board president report. Next up on our list is business services, and first on that list will be finance. That's going to be it.
All right, good afternoon, board, families, parents, staff, members of the public. So I'm going to quickly go through the finance report. So starting with the statement of activity for our 501c3. So you have here our revenue across various sources, and that net revenue right now is at a deficit, which we've been aware of and tracking, but we think we will reconcile as we get to the end of the fiscal year. Next slide. This is our current financial position. So total assets a little over $220,000 there, as you can see. Next slide. This is our budget to actual. This is just the 501c3. So as a reminder, the district holds about 99% of our budget and pays our vendors on our behalf. The 501c3 has approximately just over $1 million in the budget to provide various services. So far, we have spent about 91% of our budget. With only 6 weeks left in the school year, we appear to be on track. Next slide. So this is the other parts of our budget, which the district holds for us. You see there from various funds, so that includes the education funds, operation, Title I, etc. In terms of those funds, we have spent about 86% of that budget. And again, with 6 weeks left in the school year, we appear to be in pretty good shape. So that is the April financials, and at this time I will pause for any questions or comments. Mr. Treasurer, any comments or any additional thoughts?
The only thing I would say is, for the benefit of the board and others in attendance, Ron and I do continue to communicate each month on the information here. I've asked her to look at some trend analysis of some different line items, since the zone started, which I think is helpful as we get into the next discussion here to talk about the budget. So, again, I think our value of information continues to improve, and I think continuing to work with the district is also important to make sure we're as informed as we can be.
I'd make a motion to accept the financial report as submitted.
There's a first, is there a second?
A second.
There's a second. Any discussion, conversation? All right, seeing no questions, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. I do want to backpedal for a second. Jeff pointed out to me that normally in our adoption of a consent agenda includes approval of past meeting minutes. I think we changed the agenda a little bit this time, so I would entertain a motion related to, it was in board packets, our board meeting minutes from April 16th, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second. Is there any discussion, amendments to the meeting minutes at all? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll return back to our regularly scheduled agenda here, and next up is the proposed budget for school year 2024-2025. Yes.
would it be appropriate to make it public that we will have public comment on this issue after and yeah, I'll read that out. Just maybe, yeah, I would say maybe spread let them know now, just so they're listening to them. So maybe.
So one reminder that, we're not going to be voting on the budget tonight, but we are having a discussion item, so we will have public comment, and we're regularly having public comment at the end of every agenda item that requires action, even though action won't take place tonight. We will take public comment. I will read the public comment rules at the time that we do public comment, but thinking about during this proposal presentation, if you have questions you would like to ask public comment, would be the time to leave a comment.
All right, thank you, Chair. So each year, all public school entities are required to adopt a budget for the preceding year. The process is that is a twofold process. First, it is a proposed budget is presented and discussed in a public meeting, such as today, to give the public the opportunity to provide feedback, and then the board must wait at least 10 days to then take action on that budget. So we are here to present that proposed budget and welcome any feedback. So before I go into specific numbers, I want to just kind of share that the zone, like all school systems in Indiana and largely nationally, are having to make some difficult decisions for the upcoming school year. Certainly, we're all aware as we watch the news that we are still, as a society, as a nation, grappling with inflation. All school systems are struggling with declining enrollment, and we also at the end of this school year, we'll lose some of the COVID relief funds that was provided by the federal government to all school districts nationally with ESSER dollars. And so what that means is that essentially we will have less funds at our disposal for the upcoming school year and the foreseeable future. So we have to be very thoughtful and very intentional about how we use less funds to try to make sure that we continue to meet the needs of our students and families, and ultimately put them on a path towards success. So the first slide will be our projected revenue. For the board, as well as just members of the general public, our revenue is based on our enrollment. And so that's essentially, that's how all public schools are funded. We are projecting next year, or rather the budget is based on a projected enrollment of about 1,665 students. And so based on that, these are the projected revenues from the education fund, as well as the operation fund there. And then there are several federal programs that we receive funding from, such as Title I, IDEA, etc. There are a few state funds, such as a formative assessment grant. There's a school improvement grant, which we are currently recipients of. We will no longer receive that grant as we move into the next school year. And then certainly we do some fundraising on our own. Given that those numbers fluctuate, we did not want to build that into the revenue and make budget decisions based on funds that may or may not be collected. But we will certainly do our best to continue to pursue a variety of different grants and fundraising opportunities. So with that, we are looking at a projected revenue of approximately $25.2 million for the upcoming school year. For context, that is about 23% less than our current budget. So again, as you can imagine, having 23% less is approximately $7.5 million at our disposal means that we will have to be very intentional in the decisions that we make in terms of how we allocate these funds for the upcoming school year. So, I'm going to share with you what our expenses, our projected expenses look like for next year. So we are projecting just under $15 million in expenses for personnel. We are just around $1 million in our teaching and learning expenses, so that includes classroom supplies, curriculum, professional development for our teachers, etc. We are at about close to about $300,000 in student services, and that includes everything from social emotional support to students, athletics, clubs, enrichment, PBIS, etc. Each of our schools, the principals have some discretionary spending there that they do for school culture related activities, as well as for building level supplies, etc. And then our 501c3 is just about $1.8 million in terms of projected expenses. As we are good partners with the school corporation, they do provide a variety of different services for us, and we do have to pay for their services. As much as we'd like them to be free, but we do have to pay for those services. Right now, we are hopeful that we can get that cost down close to around $4 million. Transportation is a big driver, and so right now we are projecting about $1.5 million in expenses for transportation for next year. That will result in some changes in terms of the type of services that we provide, which I'm happy to get into if necessary, but that's what we are projecting for transportation. Anyone who runs a business, or just anyone who runs a family, will tell you it's good to have a little bit of money under the mattress. So we have some money set aside here for emergencies, or if we see some changes in enrollment. So we've allocated a little bit of a rainy day fund there in the amount of about $1 million. And then we also have an allocated expense or amount of about $1 million, as again, sometimes costs with shared services and other things fluctuate as it relates to our partnership with the district. So when you add all of that up, if my math is correct, that's just about $25.2 million as well, leaving us with a projected surplus of $1,984.89. And I did that using Common Core math, so it could be wrong, but I feel pretty good about these numbers. And so, we are required to have a balanced budget. I did the best I could to have a balanced budget that would allow us to maintain the level of staffing that we need, as well as programmatic programs that we need in order to meet the needs of our families. But again, it's about $7.5 million less than what we currently operate with. So, these expenses reflect changes that will need to be made as we move forward. So with that, I will pause for any questions or comments from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. I do have one question on the revenue item. Could you explain to the listening audience the line item where it's operations and referendum facility? Expected revenue is pretty small, right? But it's $8.4 million. And just explain, do you know what portion is your estimated income from the referendum, which is taxpayer dollars, and we only get that if people actually pay their taxes. So, what amount of this $8.4 million is the referendum?
Unfortunately, I did not break that number out, but schools essentially have 5 funds at their disposal: education, referendum, operation, referendum, debt services, miscellaneous, and there's one other I'm not remembering. But as it relates to education and operations, operations are largely driven by local tax dollars. So we're talking about real estate taxes, property taxes, etc. And so the district collects, the corporation collects that money, and we just get our share based on our enrollment. But I don't know how much of that is specifically operation versus referendum, but I can certainly get that number for you this fall.
I'd like to make a comment on the pre-K vouchers that is not on the income, the revenue side. If Dr. Lewis, if you want to explain that a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and make a comment.
Sure. So at this time, the proposed budget does not include any pre-K. So what that means is that we will be eliminating the pre-K program. Certainly, we know the value that pre-K brings in terms of early literacy for students, etc. We have a pretty stellar pre-K program. About 77% of students enrolled in pre-K end up staying in the zone as kindergarten students. But to run pre-K is a little over $500,000, and as we had to think about where we allocate our dollars, given that we have $7.5 million less than currently. At this point in time, this budget proposes that we eliminate pre-K.
Before we do, and I'll let you follow up, remind board members to speak well into the microphone, and if you could keep nodding at me if make sure online people get a chance to hear us. Maybe we have to speak right into it. I don't know, is Dr. Lewis being loud enough as well? Okay.
Maybe it's me. Okay. So I just wanted to point out, thank you for trying to balance the budget. I'm sure if we say keep pre-K in, that means something goes out, right? But one of the things that I want to point out is I don't believe we collected the full revenue that potentially that we could collect in pre-K. So if you're not familiar with the pre-K world, we also have vouchers. So that means that there were potential revenue sources that we did not fully engage in. So I would like to propose that we keep pre-K in, consider taking in full revenues from our sources that the state allows, and explore that further and see what we can bring in. I also understand that with income, also there's expenses such as including staff expenses and operational expenses, but I'd like for the board to consider and explore that revenue source.
Absolutely. I will say in general, my job here, or I think of my job here, is to present a menu of options to the board in terms of how we can allocate that $25.2 million. And so, if we don't like one of the dishes that I brought up here on the table, then we can certainly send it back to the kitchen and I'll bring something else out. But we do have to make this $25.2 million work. So we would have to look at cutting other places in order to bring back the pre-K program, which again, I strongly support as an educator. The value that the program brings for early literacy. We have a hardworking, amazing staff. We have high quality curriculum that we use in our pre-K program. The parents think very highly of the program, which is why we had to move it from half day to full day. But again, the current conditions financially, the constraints that are there, we do have to make some tough decisions. We did discuss in the April board meeting partnering with an external entity to try to operate the pre-K program on our behalf. Those conversations remain ongoing so that that is something that we're looking at as an option if we are unable to fund it ourselves. But certainly, I'm happy to go through Ms. Hyson and the board in other areas that we might want to make cuts in order to shore up revenues to keep the table if that's the desire of the board.
I guess I would just like to add that in light of the value we both see in pre-K and valuing having a balanced budget, is there a way to kind of leverage the partnership with that third party and maybe develop a budget with an infrastructure that collects the resources so it can actually not just pay for itself, but also could be additional revenue for the zone? And I guess I would like the board to explore that piece as a profit, so that it would be profitable. I know we don't like to say that word in nonprofit and education sense, but we want it to be profitable, and so it generates revenue for the board. At least to explore how can we do this in a way that benefits the zone.
Absolutely.
Less of a question, more of a comment. So the discussion we're having this evening and we'll have at our June meeting is similar to what school corporations across the country are having right now. Is they're facing sort of unprecedented difficulties in just the amount of funding for public education. And what we've realized, I think, from day one here is we have a significant amount of need and not enough resources to take care of all that need. And so we've had to make some pretty complicated discussions or decisions, I think, along the way. There's been a lot of great things we wanted to try, but sometimes the resources are just limited. I'm also troubled by this is sort of a challenge that turnaround efforts face sometimes too. Many of the turnaround efforts with school improvement grants and such get dollars to sort of help in the beginning, but then as things happen, those funds then aren't available. So we will, in the next month, have to make some really difficult decisions. Everything that we've implemented, all the programs that we've tried are programs that we think make a difference in the lives of these kids, and we wish that there was resources to do everything that we need to do, but there simply isn't, and we have a responsibility to taxpayers and to by law to pass this budget. So I don't envy any of us for the difficult decisions we have to make. I do thank Dr. Lewis and the team for being open-minded and thinking through how we best accomplish the goals that we want to continue to accomplish, because we're not ready to give up on this turnaround effort, but we're going to have to do our work with resources that are somewhat limited. So thank you, Dr. Lewis, for putting together a budget that helps us still accomplish some of that to the best extent possible. We know by no means is it perfect, but we'll be going through some difficult discussions in the next few weeks, and I just appreciate you laying that all out for us.
One, I guess comment as much as anything, for some consideration is we've seen, I've asked for, trend analysis of different expenses since the zone started. We started to see a little bit of that information. I did talk with Ms. Ross ahead of this meeting. She didn't have time to put it together, but for the benefit of the board, the budget document, I think what would be nice also to see, which I know she's working on, is to have a column side by side that shows actual on a lot of these expenses, what we most recently incurred, as well as what we budgeted a year ago, to be able to see, where are the moving pieces, and then also, I'd like to spend a little more time digging into some of the details of some of these line items to make certain that we're getting value out of what we're spending. I think we all share that opinion, to be able to make an informed decision, especially as it relates to pre-K comments and anything else, to figure out about where do we best allocate the limited funds we have.
Absolutely. So, from a more detailed perspective, line by line, I can certainly go into that with the board. I will say, specifically as it relates to programming, I looked at uh, you know, current programs that we are spending funds on and whether or not we're seeing a return on investment. So, you know, right now, this budget does not have any tutoring programs. This year, we currently have 3 tutoring vendors. We have one that's specifically working in our middle school, and then we have one for ELA and one for math. And between those 3 programs, we're looking at maybe $500,000. So I've cut those 3 programs. So we weren't necessarily seeing the gains. By no means am I saying the programs didn't work or didn't do what they were supposed to do, but in the grand scheme of things, that was something that we looked at cutting. Transportation. What I'm proposing here for transportation is a difference in $1 million than what we currently spend. And so that would include moving to hub stops, and unless it is in a student's IEP, no longer doing door-to-door services, which is not uncommon and is more sustainable. But transportation is a big cost driver. So we've eliminated a number of different things. We looked at this year to see whether or not we were getting a return on investment, and we made those cuts. We've cut back on athletics. So this past year, we had maybe about $100,000 in the budget for athletics, so we've trimmed that down. So I was also intentional about, doing across the board. If we cut, a few thousand here, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, then it should all add up. Pre-K was one of the places where, the whole thing was cut, but really tried to look at every single item to see if we were getting a return on investment in terms of student outcomes.
I would have a follow-up to I appreciate your comments. The tutoring aspect I find interesting because as we explore potentially slightly larger class sizes, that would seem to me to become even more critical. To have tutoring for certain special needs that some kids might have in some one-on-one setting to get them out of a larger classroom. It's interesting we haven't seen the return on that. Not doubting you, just saying that's surprising. Usually it has a big impact.
It can be helpful. High dosage tutoring certainly has its benefits to it. I will say, yes, we will be increasing classroom sizes this year. That, when I got here 2 years ago, having smaller classroom sizes is something that I was proud of. It's something that set us apart. And something that I know our teachers really enjoy is having smaller classroom sizes. It just makes their job so much easier. But we will have to increase classroom sizes next year, which means that we will have fewer allotments because we will essentially have less classes. But while we will be eliminating tutoring, one of the things we've been trying to do these last 2 years is to strengthen core instruction. Right? Like you can't tutor your way out of the learning deficit that we have. The student achievement is going to happen in core instruction, not through tutoring or through intervention. And I think we've been very intentional about strengthening core instruction, and so that's where we want to put that investment, is to further strengthen core instruction, given that we do have to make this tough choice of eliminating our tutoring programs. We will have some enrichment programs, so in a short while you're going to hear a little bit about the Weekend Wonders program. That is something that we think is worthwhile, and you'll hear more about that. So we have allotted to keep that going. We have some other enrichment programs, such as our partnership with 5 Star Life, Range of Life, and then for that, so Ryan, Boys and Girls Club, and a few others. we have seen a return on investment in those, and so we are going to continue to fund those programs. So we just had to look item by item and see where we can make cuts. This budget will result in cuts from our central office staff, and will result in some cuts in or building level staff in some areas as well. So it's kind of being spread all around, and I really did the best I could, given the constraints that we have.
Is there an opportunity to explore partnerships with maybe the colleges and universities where kids may have requirements of service hours or volunteering, and they can have these kids come in and tutor? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier this year, I initiated a conversation with someone in like a community division of Notre Dame around whether or not their work study work aid students could do their work study work aid. When I was in college, I did work study, but was work aid. I didn't want them. Whether or not they could get their work study work aid hours in one of our in some of our schools, either as like coaching or tutoring or something like that. So that's something that we're looking into. We've tried to reach out to groups like City Year, AmeriCorps, others to try to see where we can partner. So if the board, has other needs, I'd love to get them, and we'll definitely follow too.
Don't forget there is a huge return on investment in investing in pre-K. I just had to add it.
Agreed, 100%.
Over $16 and some odd cents, just to be, just to let you know. But I think we all have to remember that this is a turnaround schools, and that the state had, really created the South Bend Empowerment Zone. So I was just curious if we've ever gone back to the state to see if there's any additional financial support.
Yes and no. So the state itself has limited resources. The state does have the school improvement grant, which we were recipients of, which we're currently recipients of, but those funds end in September of this year. In other states, it is not uncommon for schools like the South End Environmental Schools that are considered schools in comprehensive need of improvement, for the state to have dollars that are specifically assigned to those schools in an ongoing way. However, in Indiana, while those funds exist, they are competitive. So as opposed to, again, in some other states where your school has this classification of needing turnaround, we just give you the dollars. In Indiana, all the schools that have that classification have to compete for the dollars that exist via a grant. That grant is due in a week or so. We did not have the capacity to put together a competitive grant, and I would also say, to the best of my knowledge, here in Indiana, no school or system has been awarded the grant consecutively. So our chances of continuing to get those funds, again, there are statewide maybe 150 schools that have the same classification that we do that would be eligible for that school improvement grant. So we would be competing against 45 other schools, as we're a system of 5. And it would be very unlikely for us to get the grant the second time. But we continue to engage the state, and we also want to be more intentional about engaging with legislators as well. We are also trying to be very intentional about finding ways with the corporation that we can share resources that could reduce expenses for both sides. Because again, no school system is immune from conversations that we are having now. We've begun some of those conversations with the corporation. Where can we share staff? Where can we share resources? Where are there duplications that we can cut on both sides? Where are there efficiencies? I'm trying to leave no stone unturned. As of right now, I'm teaching a class in the fall at Navarre, so that we don't have to fill that vacancy. So I'll do my day job as zone chief and somehow teach a class. So everyone is chipping in. I've had folks on the leadership team offer their resignations if they think that their salary could help the overall budget. So everyone is really trying to make this work.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear me or not. So a couple of things. First of all, I'm hearing that tutoring is going to be cut. But I also heard that there will be enrichment. However, I see a line item for enrichment and tutoring. So is it just enrichment or is it enrichment and tutoring? Because that's a little confusing to see this budget with the line item that says tutoring if tutoring is indeed cut.
Yeah, so some of the line items are clumped together. So tutoring and enrichment is one of those things that are clumped together, just like if the line item before curriculum and textbooks are clumped together. We really don't have many textbooks. Most of those funds it's curriculum, but some of the line items are clumped together. I can revisit that and break it out separately and just remove the word tutoring if that would be helpful.
Or the word enrichment because there's a tutoring, correct?
Yes, I can absolutely remove the word tutoring and just leave the enrichment.
Okay, so it'll be enrichment. Okay, I just wanted clarification on there. I wasn't sure what was going on there. And I agree with, unfortunately, I think it was Martin, but I'm not sure who everybody is talking. But some of these line items, like being able to go through and maybe talk through and ask some questions about it, because some of them, I mean, and they may not be, but to me, they look like they could be duplicates, or they could be put together and maybe could be some cuts. It's not anything huge, but if we're going to talk through this and trying to see what we can make happen, I'm just looking at this and thinking that some of these things are duplicates and they're put in one place and then put it in another place with a different amount. And so hopefully at some point as a board we can talk through this.
Absolutely. I am more than happy to go through each specific item and show you what are the contributing expenses for each specific bill.
Okay. Not that I asked for everything, but yeah, just there's certain ones. I guess maybe if we have questions about specific ones that we're like not for sure about. And then my final question is, you have gone through almost everything that you are proposing, or at least that I see that you're proposing to cut, but not everything. And so that the public knows what we're talking about, these cuts and what they're going to look like, because I don't know if there's been a communication session. I know this is not set in stone or anything, so I'm guessing there wasn't. But can you share with the public what is being proposed to be cut?
Sure. So, in terms of personnel, there's roughly about 20 or so positions that are being cut, some at the central office level, some at the building level, support roles. So we really try to make sure that we prioritize our teaching roles and not touch any of the teaching roles, but some support roles like behavior specialists, peace builders, roles like that. We are eliminating permanent substitutes as an example. So some of those auxiliary and or support roles by no means do I want to diminish the value that these roles bring, because they certainly do. But again, having to make some difficult choices, we wanted to, prioritize the classroom teachers, the certified classroom teachers. So a lot of those staffing cuts are non-certified roles. This budget also proposes that we change our transportation provider. So we currently outsource transportation to a third-party company. And this budget proposes that we return transportation to the corporation, which would give us a cost savings of roughly $1 million. And so moving to the corporation's transportation would not allow us to continue to do early dismissal on Thursdays. So we would have a similar schedule. We would have the same number of instructional hours as the corporation. We would start an hour later than their elementary and middle schools do. But we currently have about 30 or 40 minutes more instructional time each day than the corporation does, so we would run on the same schedule. That would not impact teachers in terms of the total number of hours that they would work. So our teachers currently work elementary 7:15 to 3:15, middle school it's 8:15 to 4:15. Moving transportation providers would mean that our teachers would do elementary would be 7:45 to 3:45, middle school 8:45 to 4:45. Our students at elementary school would arrive at 8:30 every day and leave at 3 p.m. So to kind of make up for no longer having Thursday dismissal, I would have in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays that 45-minute PLC time, Tuesdays and Thursdays PE time. So, kind of getting creative and trying to, although we're making some changes, it would not, again, the teacher, total number of hours would work, would not change, but we'd have less instructional minutes. So that's one way we can try to keep the Thursday, the PEs that we do on Thursday, but we no longer be able to dismiss early. Right now we have an activity bus that just kind of is a sweet bus after school for kids that have after school programming. That's something that would potentially be cut. And I think I mentioned earlier that moving back to the corporation for transportation would also result in us no longer doing door-to-door service unless it's in a student's IEP. So we would have up stops. So students would have to get to a designated location. Each route would have 6 to 8 up stops. So students would need to get to that designated location and get picked up at one of those up stops and get dropped off there. So those are some of the changes I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, we would also eliminate summer PE for staff. So last year, all returning teachers returned a week prior to the start of school. New teachers came in an additional 3 days on top of that week. That cost us maybe a few $100,000. So that's something that we would cut. Certainly, I'm a big proponent of professional development, which is why we implemented it when I got here. But again, we're just looking at a variety of different things. So those are just some of the things that we are looking at. But the biggest cost drivers are personnel and certainly transportation, and then shared services. What we pay to the corporation for the various services that they provide. Does that answer your question, Ms. Watkins?
Yes, thank you. It does, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, hearing no other comments, we will turn to public comment. I'm going to read the policy here. If anybody here, is anybody online has signed up to the public board, the board will hold public comment period for each vote and at the end of the meeting. So we will do this again at the end of the meeting. It is requested that the public focus comments on the topic of the vote or the item on the agenda. It is requested that public comment and all other topics be made at the end of the meeting. Individuals must sign up either online by 12 p.m. on the meeting date or 2 in person no later than 10 minutes after the call to order. Individuals must make their comments in person at the board meeting. Individuals are invited to address the board for 3 minutes. Individuals may only speak once during the public comment period. Speakers shall properly identify themselves after they approach the podium by stating their name and address for the record. Personnel issues are not to be addressed during open sessions. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a person's statement if the statement becomes personally directed, abusive, or obscene. At this time, is there any public comments? All right, seeing none, we will keep rolling on the agenda. Next up on the agenda is the personnel report.
So me again, personal report, there are no new hires in the month of April. I will also say this year, again, just thinking about budget, where we can, we've done a hiring freeze in order to help pull back some money this year as well. So that's a part of the reason there were no new hires in the month of April. And we had 2 staff departures for the month of April. And I believe that is the conclusion of the personnel report.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Next up is our focus reports, and the first focus report is about promotion and talent.
Good evening. I know we have some guests here that are ready and waiting, so I'm going to move through the promotion and doubt information so that we can get to the next one as well, but of course, stopping for any questions you might have. I would like to update the board on the promotion and doubt process for this year. As you all know, we started last year in the second semester of the school year, and this year we were able to, from the start, already having the familiarity of each of the schools, engage teachers, families, and leaders in the process of promotion and doubt, where we're identifying the students, small group of students with the most need, and throughout the year taking a look at their progress, co-creating action plans, taking action steps both at home and at school, and seeing how students are progressing. Not necessarily closing gaps for the students with most need, but needs in the areas of academics, attendance, and behavior. We have done this at every one of our schools throughout the year, starting in October and November, and would like to go over some of that information as it was submitted not too many weeks ago in terms of the end of the year promotion and doubt lists. This is a grade level representation or disaggregation by grade level where you can see for each of our schools as well as overall how kindergartners, first grade, second grade, on to 8th grade are represented in the lists, the final list of students that are promotion and doubt. You can see the highest numbers are in kindergarten through 3rd grade, specifically with kindergarten and 3rd grade having high numbers, and overall a reduction as we go into the intermediate grades for elementary school and middle school grades. Overall, there were 90 students in the zone that were identified as promotion and doubt on the final list. Here we can see what the breakdown is per school as well as for the zone. When we think about the most intensive need, we do think about the MTSS triangle and almost like a tier 3 intensive intervention where we're bringing parents in as partners. And 3 to 5% is where we would love for that group of students to be so that we can allocate the resources to support them intensely. Overall, we are at 5%, 4.99% as you can see, and there are some differences across schools. The percentage of students that are identified as PID and only for academics, you can see across schools, with 43.33% for the zone overall. the percent of students that have the academic category as one of the categories identified, as well as either attendance or behavior as a second category. You can see the percentages there, with 32.22% being the zone aggregate or overall average. And then percent of students that have all three categories, academics, behavior concerns, and attendance concerns. You can see how those are either not represented at a school and represented in others, as well as the overall. When we look at our subgroups and demographics, we have very small numbers, so percentages move a little bit more intensely, but you can see in parentheses, for example, for Coquillard, you can see in the Hispanic category 26%, and that is a percentage that is calculated from 6 out of 23 students. Again, small denominators. And you can see that across our schools as well as the overall for the zone. The categories go all the way down into English language learners that are identified as receiving supports for being multilingual learners, and our special education group, which is our students with IEPs. This is capturing the reduction of the students that were promotion endowed based on the progress made as teachers, parents, and leaders engaged in the action steps to intervene for the students. Again, closing large gaps and intense intervention is not necessarily the goal. We want to make sure that progress is happening and that the action steps are not only being implemented, but that students are improving in the areas of focus. You can see here for each school as well as the zone overall what the initial numbers were when promotion endowed what was open, let's say, in the fall, in the second quarter, and then what the final numbers were, with the right-hand column reflecting the percentage change or reduction of students that are PID by the end of the year. Overall, we had a 33% reduction in terms of students that did not progress enough, and we wanted to engage them in the last step of promotion endowed in terms of that school year journey as we go into the summer. I'll speak to that in just a second. As you all might remember, we had gone over the early warning system data a few months back at a board meeting. And this is a new system that we have put together that provides us with an at-risk coefficient looking at attendance, academics, and behavior, and looking at the thresholds of impact and thinking about graduation in terms of flagging early and being able to intervene early. We wanted to take a look at what the level of overlap is, and you can see here that in some places there was some overlap, but we are not necessarily at a place yet where our early warning system is matching the lists of our promotion endowed students. That's something that provides leadership teams with the opportunity to kind of dig in as to why. Why are we showing some risk of the thresholds that isn't necessarily matching up or identified in the promotion endowed students? There are two different sets of numbers there in those two rows, and that's based on a different level of threshold or level of risk. So as we go into the end of the year, the last few weeks of the year, promotion endowed is, for the students that are on the final list, is going to take them to the last intervention of the year, which is summer school. Our summer school program is specifically for promotion endowed, and is going to take their individual data into account to provide them with intense interventions for academics, which all of them have academic needs, as well as areas of support in terms of attendance and behavior. This really is that top of the triangle, so it is Tier 3 support, 3 weeks in June, from the 10th through the 28th. We have 14 days of this intervention and 90 students, like I mentioned earlier. Harrison's program, 73 students. Harrison will be where we house our elementary school, summer school for promotion endowed, and we will have 17 students at the Navarro program. There's going to be a robust schedule with a lot of rigorous academic instruction that is also engaging and provides students with the opportunities to enjoy the learning experience. We want to focus on foundational grade level standards that can support them in both ELA and in math, but making sure that they are engaging instructional lessons and tasks that are keeping the students very active as learners. There will be an additional intervention block at the elementary level based on what students need, whether that's social emotional learning, foundational literacy skills, and we're creating, as we speak, a dashboard for each student that will be information that summer school teachers will have available for their instructing. Explicit instruction will be an area of focus as well to support the prerequisite skills and the gaps that might exist in that area. Staffing PID, the summer school, is based on the number of students that were identified. And some of the things we've considered is the staff that have been able to impact student learning and that we have evidence that they've had impact on student learning in their classrooms, as well as their attendance, because it will be important for students and for our staff to be in attendance every day of our program. Last but not least, our academic summer programs not only include promotion and doubt, which I mentioned is the tier 3, the tip of the triangle, both at Harrison and Navarre, but also we have different programs for various tiers. So I just want to briefly speak to our learning liftoff in the center there. You can see that's tier 2. So we have a not intense intervention, but instead focusing on acceleration, looking at students that are approaching proficiency. And it'll be for approximately 25 rising 7th graders and 25 rising 8th graders at Navarre. And they will be engaging with a focus on acceleration. And when we look at that bottom green tier, core instruction or universal for all, our Rising Jaguar Academy. This will be our second year for the Rising Jaguar Academy. It's really tier 1 where we're providing a transition program allowing our 5th graders going into 6th grade the opportunity to experience middle school, get to know the Navarre way, teachers there, and the changing of periods, infusing all of the opportunity to get them used to and acclimated to middle school before they start. Any questions?
A question, and I think we've seen it before, and I was wondering on the number of students at Navarre that are in PID seems small to me based on how many students are not on grade level there. So in terms of like what other summer school supports that we're offering, or for just summer activity for the students who are maybe not qualified or meet all the correct criteria for PID, but still need support, is there something we're doing to help fill that need?
That the group that is the Learning Liftoff group will be that area of focus for about a quarter of students that are entering 7th grade from 6th grade at Navarre and that are entering 8th grade from 7th grade at Navarre. And they will be getting that focused academics at Navarre for the summer school period. So that's a separate program for PID that is supporting another set of students. And the Rising Jaguar Academy, of course.
I have a question.
Yes.
Of the students who started on PID and the difference, where did you make the most gains? And I'm looking at the student promotion, those with the academics only, academics and behavior, or all three. Did you see gains equally distributed, or was there one that moved off the list of the time?
In terms of academics, attendance, or behavior?
Yes.
I think some academics, it really depends on the grade level, and I would be able to come back to you to give you a more precise answer. What we did see at Navarre, and we saw this last year as well, some of the interventions that they put into place for attendance, for example, were able to move students off of the list.
At the Indiana General Assembly last session, there was a tremendous amount of debate about whether or not it's right to hold back students or not. And ultimately, I think it was 3rd grade students, whether they should be promoted or not. So can you speak to like how this ties into sort of what new stuff the state throws at us when they get together to think about new legislation?
Yes, as we look into next year. Promotion and doubt is a proactive support that really puts under the microscope our students and their progress, to be able to move them to be promoted. So proactively, we're taking a good part, 3/4 of the school year, to improve their area of focus. Academics, for example, which for like I said, all of them, there is some academic component. And so we feel very confident that this process takes place much before and puts some very specific action steps into place to help minimize the need for retention as much as possible. I think with 2 years under our belt, half a year last year and this year's promotion doubt, we can also take a look at what lessons have we learned to continue to refine it as we go into next school year. But by all means, we feel that this will be helpful. Knowing that we have second grade I-Read 3 data will also be able to provide us with a very clear data point that will be aligned to what the state's policy is.
Thank you. On the slide that talks about the early warning system, and I recall that the school brought to our attention some months ago, but am I interpreting this chart properly in that there does not seem to be a high correlation between the early warning system and being in PID? Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it seems counter to what you probably assumed you were going to see. Why do you think you saw no correlation there?
Thank you. I would expect to see more of a match, right? If we're thinking about early warning system as flagging students that are in most need, and promotion in doubt being a teacher and leader school system that is also trying to identify the students with most need to partner with families and be able to support their progress. One of the reasons I think that this is happening as we change the threshold. So from a 5.0 in the at-risk coefficient to a 4.0, and then when we change it to a 3.0, the less intensity of the early warning, right? The less intense the issue related to attendance, academics, and behavior, the more we are seeing an overlap or a match. The other piece is that really to be in the highest levels of early warning system, you must have more than only academics. So it's a 1.0 or a 2.0 if you have the most intense need in academics, for example, on the early warning system. And if you don't have issues related to attendance or behavior, you won't move too far up in the threshold.
Okay, so I mean, so then if I go back and then the higher percentage are in academics only. So that, okay.
For those that are academic, it wouldn't show up.
Sure.
Where there's no overlap and there are, let's say, a third of students that have attendance and behavior or other issues, then it's really more of a why are these not matching up and how can that improve our systems at the school level to identify who is getting support.
Okay. It's just the number. It's the number that you.
The threshold, I think, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no other questions or comments, we will. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Sonia.
I just wanted to say to our Senator that I really appreciate her presentation. Thank you for the details and the presentation.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you as well. Okay.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to the next presentation. I think it's actually our last one. I think we got some teachers waiting here. We got some students waiting here. We have a very few baby waiting here. So next up is Weekend Wonders, accelerated and engaging learning spaces for students.
They are waiting and ready. So I'm going to get everybody to the table and we'll get started in a moment. They're all ready and waiting, huh? excited to be able to share a little bit about Weekend Wonders and introduce our guests for tonight as well. Weekend Wonders is something that was designed, and this is our first time offering it. It's very exciting to be able to launch this. Really an opportunity for enrichment outside of the school day and the school week, where we could have a space for challenging students through various learning challenges, having them collaborate and really engage in some incredible teamwork, and having critical thinking and rigor at the front, and really at the center of it all. We have brilliant students in the zone, we really do. I have included on this slide just because I think it's wonderful, and it's something that was created by our leaders who I'll introduce in a moment. A golden ticket that students received and were invited to attend our first ever Weekend Wonders Saturday spring program of enrichment. The school effectiveness framework is really something I'm bringing in here because everything we do really ties to these areas that we are focusing on. You know, we have our zone improvement plan goals, but we also have our 5 essentials, and we talked about those last month. I think for this program, we really are anchored in several of the essentials in the framework. Teachers collaborated in this program, and they'll expound a little bit more on this, but they collaborated in this program to really create challenging learning experiences for students. The students engaged in rigorous tasks, fun and engaging tasks. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but that ties to our ambitious instruction of the 5 essentials. They created supportive environments every week of this 3 Saturday series. Where students and families brought their students from 9 to 1 to be with teammates engaging in these tasks. There was a supportive environment in the classroom where they were able to take risks and engage in this rigorous learning, which comes with maybe making a mistake, maybe having to count on my teammate, and they did that. The teachers and the leaders set up an atmosphere and an environment that was fully fostering that. And the invested families, we really had families that not only brought their students on Saturday, but at the last session, and we don't capture it in the video that we're going to share, but at the last session, we had a closing ceremony with a huge challenge, families there clapping and cheering on their students, and it was just an incredible community event. So enough from me. I would like to introduce our 2 leaders. We have Sarah Rodriguez and we have Becky Pryor. Sarah is at Cook Willard and Becky Pryor is at Navarre, and I'm going to hand it over to them to share a little bit more.
All right, so thank you for giving us the space to talk about this program. We were so excited to get it started. Originally, in a previous district I've been in, we had enrichment programs on Saturdays, and their turnout was great. The kids are really engaged. I'm so glad we were able to bring it here to the zone. So we called it Weekend Wonders at the Olympics. So we have 2 Olympians here with us, and we are Olympic coaches. You can see us in our track suits as you see the pictures, and the kids really got engaged and involved in this. And we started, the program started with Nathan Boyd, I think, approaching somebody about the program for enrichment. And I had worked with him in the past, and as he talked about it a little bit, Sarah and I were able to take the idea and kind of run with it and build out a program where all of our kids were competing against each other in different stations. So we had the math station in Africa with Madagascar and Morocco. We had the language arts station in Estonia and England. And then we had our challenge station in South America for Chile and Colombia. So it was really exciting. The kids were on a team in a country, and they had their Olympic coaches, and they were able to do a lot of hands-on activities, a lot of creative activities. They were up and moving around consistently. So whereas in the classroom, we have to be so serious as teachers. We have so many standards to get through. Our kids need to be on grade level. They need to produce growth. Then in here at this program, it was really exciting because we're in the hallway and we're hearing so much laughter. We're hearing giggling from the kids. We're hearing their competitiveness and their creativeness come out, and it was just a very, this one especially, and it was just a very exciting program. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to talk to you guys a little bit more about how we organize the event.
Yeah, hi. So after we found out about this program, the way that students were invited was through the gold ticket. So we asked each teacher in grades 30 through 8 to nominate 5 students originally, several was about 100 students. We asked them to nominate students who maybe would need some kind of enrichment. A lot of times we focus on intervention and, bringing students with the skill gaps. But we really wanted an opportunity for all students to be able to shine. So students who were invited received a golden ticket. It was also important to us for these students to be seen by their peers as representatives. So we wanted everybody to kind of cheer them on. At Quillard, I know we heard kids in the hallway, like really, even if they weren't nominated originally, they were cheering on the representatives and really excited and rallying around them. So that was neat to see.
At the middle school level, they were just excited there was donuts. So that's what they were talking about in the hallways for us. Yeah, once they got, that's how we got them in the door. That's how we got middle schoolers to wake up on a Saturday morning. So to kind of end out the program, I had a vision where we would bring all the different grade levels together in separate teams. And you will get your turn. And in these teams, the kids were mixed up 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders in 3 teams. And we had huge parent turnout, probably like want to say close to 30 parents and families come out to cheer on their champions. And in the championship, each grade level went and answered a few questions, and at the very end there was a challenge, which I think Roxanne has a video for. It might be a little loud. Yeah, so the final challenge after they answered some trivia questions was to create, they had a variety of materials, and they had to use these materials and whatever knowledge they had about materials to create a boat. And whichever boat could hold the most cargo, which was pennies, ended up winning that section and added on to their points in the scoreboard.
You said to give a capture of the excitement.
Yeah, you can't see it, but there's about 50 people in the cafeteria at this point. So based on the championship, the kids got medals. So you can see here, here's our coaches, our Olympic coaches that we had in the classroom. Again, we did ELA enrichment, math enrichment, and hands-on STEM activities. And then I'll turn it over to our silver medalist here. And she can talk to you guys a little bit about like her experience in this program.
May I tell you, it was not the donut that broke me out, it was most definitely the pizza. And two, it was most definitely not my boat. Well, our boat was not a submarine. It was a boat. It was supposed to be a boat. Alright, by far my most favorite event there would probably be the marble run. It had definitely a lot of it focused a lot about teamwork and
it definitely helped me like understand like the problem solving and adding people's strengths and weaknesses into it. Like for example, some people were good at putting things back together when things broke. Some people were good at drawing the design. It was definitely big thing, teamwork, as I said before, thing. It was really fun, actually. It was definitely a good investment to waking up like that early in the morning. Very good investment of my time.
What did you ask about, you're going into?
One question that I really, big question that I asked was, would there be a Weekend Wonders in high school? Because the Weekend Wonders thing would be, was actually, it was really fun. And I would most definitely 100% do it again if I had the opportunity. So.
Do you mind going to the next slide so we can see? So this is trivia lead professor, Robert, here in the Michigan second grade. Okay. So I'm going to just ask him some questions. So trivia, what did you enjoy about the program?
It was probably winning the entire thing out of all the elementary teams that were there. Probably that. And pizza. The experiences, it was really hard. There were a lot of tough situations, and the egg drop was really good. It really brought out the creativity of my teammates, and guess what? The egg didn't crack.
My egg was injured. It was injured when I was like, it was injured.
Okay, thank you both, and thank you, Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Pryor. We do want to end our Weekend Wonders report.
We can get the names and grades.
Yes. Oh, names and grades.
My name is Travion Crawford, and I am in the 4th grade of Miss Lampton's class, and I go to Pocatello.
Okay, my name is Keanu Whitney. I'm in the 8th grade. I go to the Bar Middle School.
Were you going to high school?
That's a lie.
Where are you going to high school this year?
Adams. Going to Adams.
Thank you all. To close out our Weekend Wonders report, talking to the students, talking to the coaches, the teachers, and the parents that we're supporting, and talking to the leaders, it's incredibly rewarding to hear the excitement, the enthusiasm, and also talking to families, because I did so while we were waiting for the closing ceremony and the challenge to begin. The feedback was extremely positive from all stakeholders, and we are excited about the opportunity to be able to continue into next year, providing enrichment activities that are rigorous and fun. And to that point, one of the things that we are coordinating is a roundtable discussion with those that have been a part of it, especially after speaking to some of the teachers, and having some students that engaged in it as well. Really bridging this learning experience and this rigor and this student as driver of their own learning into the classroom. And why not? And how do we do that together as a community? They've talked about really the teamwork, the collaboration, the communication, the problem solving, the challenge, challenging their thinking, and how can we together come up with more of that in the classroom. So we're excited about the outcomes and about continuing and extending it not only on Saturdays, but into the classroom as well. Thank you all.
Any questions? They ran away quickly. But we had to get to some high fives back there. Questions?
I don't have a question. I think they answered all of my questions that I would have had. I would just love to just congratulate you on behalf of the board to come on a Saturday morning to something that's hard or rigorous, as was stated. I just want to say you're demonstrating the kind of the academic leadership that's really going to take you a very long way. So I wanted just to make sure you heard that. So that you did a great thing, even more than just having fun.
I'll make a quick comment, well, two quick comments. One, to the staff, so thank you for spending time on a Saturday. I know it was more than just you two, so there's other folks, support staff that help make it happen, central office staff that help make it happen. So the zone staff in general, I love seeing the zone so active on Saturdays or on the weekends, or, I was at Westside Refresh the other day, like we're trying to do a lot. And I get that too as a parent. My kids want to know how they get engaged with their classmates in school on the weekends, right? And so if the schools can help provide an opportunity for that, and that provides an academic enrichment, I think that's fantastic. So also I want to echo what Dwayne said to our two students that are being here. So thank you to the parents or units and family that are here who have brought folks. Thank you for encouraging and supporting your children through education. It means a lot. And so we definitely appreciate that. Thank you. Other questions, comments? We made you guys come back up here for nothing, but thank you very much. Thank you very much. So congratulations again. Thank you for being here. And good luck at Adams next year. We'll have to call Jim Sykes over there and make sure the principal and team look out for you on your way over to Adams High School.
Yeah.
All right, with that, so board meeting updates. I got distracted here by so our next board meeting is June 18th. Which will be out here again on the west side at Navarre. That's the only real item I've got there. The last one is public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, I will save myself the 35 seconds of reading the whole policy again. And then I will say thank you to everybody for being here. Once again, a big thank you to the Warren staff for hosting us this evening and for getting us out here on this beautiful evening. Thank all the board and the staff who worked hard on this meeting. And then with that, we are adjourned at 7:35. Thank you very much.